Hi, and welcome to day 15 of our 20-day Genesis read-through. So we're right at the end of week 3 with only 1 week to go after this reading. And today we're going to be properly introduced. We've already heard about his birth, but we're going to be introduced properly to our final character in Genesis. That's it. We're going to stay with that story until the end of Genesis. So there are no more characters. There's no more people to follow. This is basically where we're going to start and end with Joseph. And I've called this Technicolor Dreamer because we all know this story from Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and I'm trying my best not to burst out into song because it's so etched within our memories. Today I'm going to read from John Goldingay's Old Testament for Everyone interpretation. Hopefully that's helpful for you. But it's a really good story to get involved with. It's far more flowing, and we remember a lot of it because of the aforementioned musical. So stick with it and let's get through Genesis and this story of Joshua, our complete dreamer. Genesis 37. Jacob lived in the country where his father had stayed, the country of Canaan. This is Jacob's line. Joseph, when he was 17 years old, was pasturing the flocks with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of his father's wife, Bilhah and Hilzah. Joseph brought a bad report about them to their father. Now, Israel loved Joseph most of all his sons because he was the son of his old age. He made an ornamented coat for him. His brothers saw that their father loved him far more than all of his brothers, and they were not able to speak a peaceable word to him. Joseph had a dream and told his brothers, and they hated him some more. He said to them, "Will you listen to this dream that I have had? There we were binding up sheaves in the middle of the country. There my sheaf got up, yes, stood, and there your sheaves gathered around, and they bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you really going to reign over us? Will you really rule over us?" They hated him some more because of the dreams and what he had said. He had another dream, and he told his brothers. There the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. He told his father and his brothers, and his father reprimanded him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have had? Are your mother and your brothers and I going to bow down to the ground to you?" So his brothers were incensed at him, while his father kept the matter in mind. His brothers went to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "You know your brothers are pasturing the flocks at Shechem. Come on, I will send you to them." He said to him, "I'm here." And Israel said to him, "Well, will you go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks and bring back word to me?" So he sent him. From the vale of Hebron he came to Shechem. And a man found him. He was wandering about in the open country. The man asked him, "What are you looking for?" He said, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are pasturing?" The man said, "They have moved from here, because I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph followed his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from a distance, and before he got near them, they plotted to put him to death. They said one to another, "Here, the great dreamer is coming. So now come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns. We'll say a wild animal ate him. We'll see what becomes of his dreams." But Reuben heard them and he rescued him from their power. He said, we won't take his life. So Reuben said to them, don't shed his blood. Throw him into this cistern in the wilderness. Don't lay a hand on him, so that he might rescue him from their power and give him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped Joseph of the coat, the ornamented coat that was on him, took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. They sat down to have dinner, but looked up and saw there a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, their camels carrying spices, balm, myrrh, on the way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what's the gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come on, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. Our hands, they shouldn't be on him, because he is our brother, our flesh and blood. So his brothers gave heed. When some Midianite traders passed by, they pulled up Joseph, got him up out of the cistern. And so they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 silver pieces. And they took Joseph to Egypt. Reuben came back to the cistern, and there Joseph was not in the cistern. He tore his clothes and went back to his brothers and said, the boy isn't there. And where can I turn? They took Joseph's coat, slaughtered a goat, dipped the coat in their blood, and sent the ornamented coat to get it to their father, and said, we found this. Will you look at it? Is it your son's coat or not? He recognised it and said, my son's coat? A wild animal has eaten him. Joseph has been torn to pieces. Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth around him, and mourned for his son for a long time. All his sons and daughters set about comforting him, but he refused to be comforted, and said, I will go down to Sheol in the morning. So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold him to the Egyptians, to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the chief guard. At that time Judah went down from his brothers and pitched his tent near a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hirah. Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. He took her and slept with her. She became pregnant and bore a son, and called him She became pregnant again and bore a son, and called him Anan. Once more she became pregnant, and she bore a son. She called him Shelah. She was at Shezeb when she bore him. Judah took a wife for his firstborn Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, displeased Yahweh, and Yahweh let him die. Judah said to Anan, sleep with your brother's wife, be a brother-in-law to her, raise up offspring for your brother. But Anan knew that the offspring would not be his, and when he slept with his brother's wife, he would waste it on the ground, so that he would not give offspring to his brother. What he did displeased Yahweh, and Yahweh let him die. Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, live as a widow in your father's household until my son Shelah grows up, because he thought, he may also die like his brothers. So Tamar went and lived in her father's household. Time went on, and Shua's daughter, Judah's wife, died. When Judah had got over it, he went up to the men who were shearing his flock, and his friend Hirah the Adullamite to Tamar. Tamar was told, here, your father-in-law is coming up to Timnah for the shearing of his flock. Tamar set aside her widow's clothes upon her, covered herself with a veil, and disguised herself, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, because she saw that Shelah had grown up. But but she had not been given to him as a wife. Judah saw her and thought she was a prostitute because she had covered her face. He turned aside to her by the road and said, "Here, can I sleep with you?" Because he did not know it was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me if you sleep with me?" He said, "I myself will send a kid goat from the flock." She said, "If you give me a pledge until you send it." He said, "Well, what pledge shall I give you?" She said, "Your seal and cord and the staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her, and she slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. She set off and went on her way, and set aside her veil from upon her, and put on her widow's clothes. Judah sent the kid goat by the hand of his friend Adullamite to get the pledge from the hand of the woman, but he could not find her. He asked the people of the place, "Where is that hooker, the one at a name by the road?" But they said, "There's been no hooker here." He went back to Judah and said, "I couldn't find her. Moreover, the people of that place that said, 'There has been no hooker here.'" Judah said, "She can have it, otherwise we will be a laughing stock. I sent her a kid goat, but you couldn't find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. In fact, she's pregnant through being immoral." Judah said, "Bring her out. She should be burned." As she was being brought out, she said to her father-in-law, "It is by the man to whom these belong that I am pregnant," and said, "Will you examine them? Who is the one who owns the seal and the cord and the staff?" Judah examined them, and he said, "She is in the right, not me, because of the fact that I did not give to her my son Shelah. He did not sleep with her again. When the time of her giving birth came, there twins in her womb. When she was giving birth, one put out her hand, and the midwife took a red thread and tied it on his hand, saying, 'This one came out first.' But when he took back his hand, his brother came out and said, 'What a breakout you have made for yourself.' So he was called Breakout. Afterwards, his brother, who had the red thread on his hand, came out. He was called Shining. So there we have it, Genesis 37 and 38, and this third week is complete. And we've had that introduction to Joseph. I can understand his brothers having a little bit of a problem with him. I mean, you feel to Joseph because he's 17, and I don't know about you, but I know that when I was 17 I was probably quite irritating and definitely more full of myself than I am even now. It's an age, isn't it, where you're overconfident, and I mean, he's having these dreams and he's just like, "Oh, I've got to tell everybody," and you think, if you were 37, I think you probably have known to keep your mouth shut. But we have that conflict that is passed down all the way from Leah and Rachel, this warring between sisters, because you kind of forget, or at least I find that I forget, that Leah and Rachel are sisters. Leah's the older sister and that's Rachel, and they end up, I think, hating one another because of the way that their dad Laban tricked Jacob, but also because Jacob just doesn't love Leah, and that's down, and here we have Joseph and all the trouble that he gets into because of that fact. But more importantly, God's blessing still, even though that's all going wrong because of people being stupid and not helpful, God's still working out his blessing and still there with Joseph all the way through his encounters. So God's still with us. God is still with us. That's just, it's you know, regardless of anything, God's faithfulness will stick through. Doesn't matter what we do. Doesn't matter what's done to us. God's faithfulness is there, is there, is there. And we also have that really interesting interlude in the story of Joseph. I quite like that interlude because you're almost like, oh, and what happens next? But we get the story with Judah and Tamar. And Tamar, obviously, it's significant because that's the line that Jesus is going to come from. That's where it's going to all come out. We need to know this story because she takes it into her own hands to make sure that actually Judah does right by her. So that's going to be interesting when you've got to wait all the way to the New Testament to see how significant that is. But you know, aren't we glad we got that story? It's almost you see the significance of the Word of God because that story is intact, and then we have Jesus who came all the way through because of that. And again, turn to your Matthew genealogy. There's Tamar. What else to say? Well, just lots more stuff is going to happen with Joseph. Lots more calamities, lots more blessings from God. It's a pretty exciting story, really. So definitely have a break over the weekend, mull over what you've heard now, and then Monday, day 16. Let's get this Genesis 20-day read through completely done.